Golic and Smetty here. They're past me. I'm so much, I could be their grandfather, so they want to be you. Welcome to another edition of Bad Luck, Golic and Smetty. I'm Mike Golic Sr. She is Jess Matana. And we are coming off our first live show at Notre Dame last Friday, the day before the Stanford game. The show went extremely well, I thought, Jess, and then the game not so much.
I should have known, Mike. I mean, we should have known. This is why we can't have nice things. Like, one thing goes right and another thing goes wrong. This is why I have anxiety, Mike. It just feels like once the good things start rolling, should have seen that Stanford loss coming. I know you were at the game. I was at the game. It was the first game I went to this season. It was really weird. I thought that having a primetime game against like a unranked team like Stanford kind of had a weird home atmosphere. And
yeah,
again, when you're losing in the first half and not doing anything on the field, that doesn't help either. But I was just as shocked as anyone else that Notre Dame lost that game. We were so complimentary to the Irish during our show and leading up to it, and really critical of Stanford, and then there you go. Stanford wins 16-14.
Yeah, we were both on the same local pregame show out here with some others, and they asked for scores at the end. And you said 40, didn't you? You had Notre Dame in the 40s, didn't you? Yeah,
I did. Mike, sometimes you got to ham it up because the audience watching the local ABC show in South Bend wants you to say that the team's going to win by 1,000,000 points. I mean, there was actually a former Notre Dame football player who did predict Irish by 1,000,000. So at least my prediction wasn't as ludicrous as that. But yeah, Mike, bad game.
I didn't even think it, because I get it. You want to make it good for TV, but I believed it. I thought we were going to put up 30 or 40 against them. And then when Stanford went right down the field on their first drive and scored, I'm like, oh, okay. We're starting out slow, but man, I guess the word is inconsistent now. That I would say for this team. We've seen them play well, and we've seen them play bad, and we've seen them. So that's the textbook dictionary of inconsistent. And of course, boy oh boy, they won't do it because they're 18 to 22-year-olds. But boy, it'd be nice if the players just sit there and say, stay off social media because it's getting ugly out there right now. Six games in, it blows my mind of all the great coaches that we have out there in Twitter world that know better what to do on the field than listen. And everybody is free to criticize all you want. Don't get me wrong. You're absolutely entitled to your opinion, but some of it gets a little bit laughable.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think it's okay to say that Notre Dame has lost 2 games that they absolutely should not have lost.
Sure.
But also that it's only been 6 games of a new head coaching regime, and we should probably wait until the end of the season to say what the season is or isn't. You mentioned Stanford scoring a touchdown on their first drive. That was the only touchdown they scored the entire game. The defense, although they were not great at getting 3 and outs, they did hold them to field goals the rest of the game. So really all you needed from Notre Dame's offense was a couple drives and maybe some turnover luck for a change. I know there was that one Tanner McKee fumble that got called back, and there was a touchdown that got called back. And that's really all Notre Dame needed, but they didn't have it. And like you said, I mean, I think the players are getting criticized. The coaches are certainly getting criticized. And I also think it's fair to say when a player has a good or bad performance or a coach has a good or bad performance. But overall, like, it was really just a abysmal game from a fan perspective. I mean, it wasn't one of those losses where it was even like interesting or fun or like fun to watch. It was just really bad.
Well, it was because all the expectation was that we were going to take care of business in that one. It was the students the day before had their last classes. They were off for the week, but there was still a good amount of them there. You wonder how many now will come back, on Saturday for the UNLV game this week. I have no idea, but I just have to say, as I said, everybody's entitled to their opinion, about criticizing who or what you say or about play calling or this or that. But the one thing that gets me is the people that are out there criticizing Marcus Freeman's pressers, saying, well, he's saying the same thing. They have to execute, and then they don't go out and execute. And, what's he telling us? And my thought, I just laugh at that, because in all honesty, I always think everything as a former player, the best ones as far as I'm concerned, and they're not for us, the media, or for the fans, but it's Bill Belichick. Tell them nothing. Yeah. Tell them not. You know what? Bill and every head coach out there now, including Marcus Freeman, doesn't owe me, doesn't owe you, doesn't owe the media, and doesn't owe the fans the inner workings of the team and what's going on, how they really want you to delve into it. He doesn't. Head coaches don't. They should just, sing that same song, put out what they want to put out, and all you need to worry about is what you're talking with the team about and what you're working on. Listen, are they playing good? No, they're not. But to throw, and people, like I said, can criticize play calling or players or coaches. That's fine. But to sit there and criticize a presser, he's saying the same thing and he's saying execute. Well, no kidding. Name me a coach who hasn't uttered the word execution, and we have to execute better 20 times.
We shouldn't mention Brian Kelly and execution in the same sentence if we're naming coaches and execution.
He didn't get that one right, did he?
I agree. Like, if you're a coach in a press conference, like, what are you really going to say? If you're too happy and optimistic, everyone's going to be mad at you. If you're too down in the dumps, everyone's going to be like, well, you can't motivate your team. Yep. You're really trying to send a message to your players and to recruits in a press conference, I think, if you're a college football coach. And like you said, Bill Belichick gets made fun of and laughed at for his one-word answers, but he also doesn't give away anything, and that's why he is, part of why he's considered one of the greatest of all time. The head coach of my NFL team famously says sometimes very bizarre things during his press conferences that are, I don't know if intentionally cryptic and so that people can't read too much into them or what, but last week Mike Tomlin said after the Steelers lost in horrible fashion to the Bills, I don't intend to change for the sake of changing, to shoot a hostage. And I still have no idea what that means. So yeah, you could read whatever you want into head coach press conferences, but at the end of the day, like they're for public relations standpoints. You're not really going to find out what's going on in practice during one of those.
No, you are not. As much as you dive into a question to try and get a coach to say something, most of them will not. You send out the message that you want to send out, and you go from there. So, we'll see the UNLV coming up this week, and then at Syracuse. Syracuse still undefeated. We'll see if they are by the time we get there. But I mean, they can give them credit. They're playing some excellent ball, no doubt about that. And I doubt. I think a lot of people doubt they will be undefeated by the time we play them, because they play Clemson this week at Clemson. So that's going to be a hell of a test for them, and who knows? We'll see if their magical year can kind of continue. Ours did not, so I don't know if we'll ever be invited back from that standpoint. But boy, what a
great point.
We had as we mentioned, only the second time in college football where we had 3 games of undefeateds that were 5-0 or better. Michigan took care of business against Penn State, put up 41-17. I mean, they pulled away from Penn State and controlled that game at Michigan. And then the other 2, wow. I mean, Alabama, Tennessee, TCU, Oklahoma State. As I said, everybody except the defensive players and former defensive players loved that game. But I just think as a defensive player, no matter if you're on the winning team or losing team, you're going to have an awful day in film session the next day because of all the points that were scored. But, that Tennessee, and as I had said all week, Tennessee can win that game. But I thought Alabama would if Bryce Young started. But it's not like I would say, oh my God, the biggest upset of all time. Not by any stretch. And people say, well, is Alabama not as good, or the top teams not as good? No, I still think they're really good. I just think the gap is closing, Jess. I think other teams are getting really good, like Tennessee. Hendon Hooker is putting himself squarely in the Heisman talk. I think he has now 15 touchdowns and just the 1 interception, which he threw against Alabama. I think other teams like Tennessee, Ole Miss, USC, though they dropped one to Utah, Oklahoma State, or I should say TCU. I mean, there's a lot of really good teams. I wish this year, quite honestly, that the playoffs were expanded, because I think there's a lot of good teams.
Yeah, I think your point about Tennessee is a good one, but I still want to see how they finish out their season, because I think when you get to this point in the season, we're kind of halfway through now, and Alabama has one loss, and Tennessee's has like that marquee win of the season, really of their program for the last 15 years. I think it's great and it's fun to watch, and certainly Notre Dame fans who are watching that game at the stadium were rooting for Tennessee. But you still need to see how they finish out the season. One of the reasons that Nick Saban is the greatest of all time is because he's able to keep his team focused even when they do lose a game that, they want to win or they think they should win, because there's still a whole lot of season left. If you're Tennessee, you still have to play Georgia. Then if you beat Georgia, you might have to play Alabama again in the SEC championship, or another SEC West team if one beats Alabama. So there's really a lot of season left to go. And I think the thing that sets apart the good teams from the great teams is that the great teams still can finish the season strong as the schedules get tougher, as they play, their rival teams, their conference opponents, and then these conference championship games, which, the SEC championship games usually been a pretty good game the last few years. So I'm excited to see the way that all shakes out. But yeah, you mentioned Utah upsetting USC. That was an exciting game. TCU, Oklahoma State, which again, Gojo has gotten to call some of the best college football games this season. Like we needed some of his luck this weekend on Saturday. Maybe Notre Dame should invite him back for the Clemson game. But yeah, it's been a fun college football season, and like you said, it'd be nice to have the expanded playoff this season, but these things always shake out in a way where by the end of the season, there's a pretty clear delineation between top four, maybe top five. I'd be surprised if this season was different, but if it does, shake out that way, we'll have some good New Year's Six bowl games at least.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you, and I'm with you about the SEC. Now the Tennessee gets that win over Bama. They have to take on Georgia, so they're both sitting at the top of the East, and then it's actually Ole Miss on the top of the West over Alabama, and Georgia and Alabama don't play in the regular season this year. But Ole Miss and Alabama do, so that'll be the game to see who gets in the SEC title game to try and get into the Final Four. I mean, there's still a lot to go, but boy, oh boy, what Tennessee did in that game. They're an exciting team to watch. They really are, and it's good to have another team in there because it's Ohio State, it's Georgia, it's Alabama. But it's good when those other teams, and we always wonder about the Big 12. We see TCU now, and throw Oklahoma State still there. It was a good game that they played. I thought it was high scoring, so you never know how it's going to go. But what do you have? You have TCU sitting there at 8, and Oklahoma State sitting there at 11. You always wonder with the Big 12 though. Do they fold at the end? We always say, oh, they look good, and then they end up on the outside looking in. So, let's see if one of them get there. Because I'm with you. There's a lot of season yet to go. We'll get a lot of good head-to-head matchups that are going to decide this. And that's one of the things. Quickly, I wouldn't mind. I want to get your view. We're going to expand to 12. And people are saying it's going to ruin the regular season because some of these are like playoff games, during the regular season playoff games because of the implications. And I say you're just looking at the wrong part of the rankings once we expand. Now because there's 4 teams, you look at like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when those teams, the tough games and regular season playoff game type atmosphere we talk about, when we go to 12 teams, it'll be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Those are the teams we'll be looking at as far as regular season kind of playoff games. So I still think you get those exciting games. It just slides down the rankings a little bit.
I totally agree with you. I don't think it takes anything away from the regular season, except for maybe you see a team that, and this is already sort of the case for some teams, like you see a team like Ohio State, say that they lose a game to Purdue in the middle of the season. Now, instead of, and that happened a couple years ago, instead of like, all right, it's going to be really hard for them to make the playoff unless another team loses a game. Now It's like, all right, they'll probably make it, but now they might have to play a harder, game off the top. And I think like if they do, the seeding where there's bye weeks and stuff like that, and like 2 teams take a bye, like I think that will still matter. And so maybe there will be a slight change, but I also do think it makes other games, like if you're more of a casual college football fan watching in week 6 or week 7, and you're watching Syracuse and Clemson, now that's basically like a mini playoff preview game if you think Syracuse can win out if they lose to Clemson, or vice versa with Clemson. I think it makes the regular season more exciting, like you said, because now there's more teams in the mix, and even trickling down to teams ranked 20 through 25, right? Maybe they win a game and now they're in the mix midway through the season when they lost early and didn't seem to have a chance. So I don't think it makes it any less exciting. And if you love watching college football games, you would love watching that Tennessee-Alabama game this weekend, even if it didn't have any stakes attached to it in terms of playoffs or rankings, right? It was just a fun college football game. There was missed field goals. There was touchdowns. I mean, it was just crazy. It was fun to watch. So I still think that the college football product is good enough that it really isn't going to change too much in terms of regular season. But we'll see how it shakes out.
As you said, fun to watch, except if you were a defensive player, because that's ugly. But I do get the point, though, that people would say, like in a few weeks when Georgia plays Tennessee, another maybe a de facto play-in game, and if they were having the seasons they were now, we're in a 12-team playoff, that game probably wouldn't make much of a difference because they would both probably be in the top 12. So as I said, you just have to look in different spots in the rankings to where it's going to go. So I thought it was a great college football weekend, save for Notre Dame Stanford, which was very, very tough to swallow. NFL, just like the Alabama Tennessee game, we got Kansas City and Buffalo. You know what? And that lived up, right? I mean, that lived up to the hype as well, with Buffalo getting the win there. And Mahomes, you're thinking is going to bring him back, and there's a turnover and it doesn't happen, but we got basically what people think are the two best teams in the AFC squaring off. So all over the place, college and pros. And the game I called, you had Dallas at 4-1 and Philly was 5-0 and undefeated. And that looked like it was going to be a runaway. And then Dallas has a big third quarter and gets within 3, but then Philly ices the game. So a lot of good games, I think, on both sides, college and NFL.
Well, I hate to bring up the Steelers again because really I'm making this all about myself. But Mike, the Steelers had probably the upset of the weekend, maybe of their entire season, beating Tom Brady and the Bucs. And the storyline, of course, became Tom Brady went to Robert Kraft's wedding on Friday night and he missed the walkthrough and he wasn't playing well and he was yelling at his O-line. And my question for you, like, what does missing the walkthrough even mean if you're a player? Does that matter if you're 45 years old?
Well, I mean, it's part of I go back to the Urban Meyer thing when they played in Cincinnati. I actually called that game, and then he stayed, to go to his bar or whatever in Columbus or blah, 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 and that whole thing. And the stuff, where he got caught with the pictures with the girl, that, as I said, that's
we remember.
Yes, that's between him and his wife. I talk about football, and players and coaches and from a football side. That's his personal life. I'm not getting into that. The thing that irked me was the fact he didn't go back with the team. Okay? I'm sure the part maybe irked his wife was a little different, but the part that irked me was the fact he didn't go back with his team, said he needed kind of a break. Well, what the hell do you think the players need? They hadn't won a game. They were winning in that game and they lost, and you don't go back with your team. You're not a team. So that's kind of it. You're a team, and you stick together. Walk through, yeah. Technically, Tom Brady needing walk through, understandably, no. I get it. But it's just the fact that this is what you do. It's just like his 11-day absence. Now, again, if it was for the personal reasons and it's family and all that, you have to be understanding about some of that without question. But, this was for a wedding, I mean, nothing unbelievably crucial here. So, and you see Todd Bowles came out and he said, listen, he's not getting preferential treatment. Even lesser players, if they had some things they needed to do, they would be able to do it. I don't know. I maybe that this is still the old school in me. I think, you're in the season. This is team stuff, unless it's, an emergency or, because I put family before even football. If it has something to do that's serious there, I get it. But, a wedding, now, is that the reason they lost? No. But, we keep saying about Tom Brady and the Bucs and Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay, they're going to all figure it out. Well, you know what? I don't think they're going to. I don't think these teams are going to end up being very good. we keep saying when Aaron figures it out with these receivers. Well, I mean, we're getting in the area a couple of weeks of the halfway point of the season, and they're not scoring for shit, and really neither is Tampa Bay. So there's a point where you say, this is what we are. I mean, Tom has had his receivers for a couple of weeks, and we see Aaron struggling as well. Now he's getting hit a lot, but he doesn't look like the Aaron Rodgers that's walking into the Hall of Fame. So for all we've been kind of giving these guys the benefit of the doubt, I don't think it's happening for either team this year. Playoffs certainly maybe, but I don't see them in the hunt for the Lombardi Trophy by the end of the year. So circling all the way back, it's just the whole team aspect to me. This is your walkthrough. This is where you're supposed to be right now, outside of an emergency, and going, to your former owner's wedding. To me, doesn't fit the bill of an emergency. But again,
Sir Elton John was there.
They don't give a shit what I think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how awesome is that?
That's why he had it in the fall, apparently.
I saw him. Oh, yeah. I wanted to know when he had an off day. I saw him in concert, me and my wife in Vegas. Wow, was he fantastic. So I get that. So maybe.
You get that.
Maybe, if Tom wanted to go hear Elton John, maybe, huh?
Then you understand. I think the thing that I was going to say Elton John and Urban Meyer, but no, I mean to say the thing that Tom Brady and Urban Meyer have in common in those scenarios is that they're both perceived to be leaders of the team. Urban Meyer, obviously a head coach, lead by example, but Tom Brady as the veteran quarterback who's won 7 Super Bowls and he's considered the greatest of all time. And so maybe there are people that roll their eyes and are cynical about teamwork, whatever. Like, these are paid professionals, and if Tom Brady isn't there, maybe his teammates should get that. But I also can see your point of view, Mike, saying, you were saying you're old school, but I think there's some truth to it, that there's also the camaraderie of being on a team and like doing things together and being where you're supposed to be that maybe does come into play. And so I've heard a lot of people say that, like, if you're going to miss a walkthrough or you're not going to travel with the team or whatever, that's fine, but you better play well. And then he didn't really play too well. So that's maybe where the issue comes into play. And it wouldn't have mattered if they had just, not had Mitch Trubisky drive the ball all over them at the end of the fourth quarter, but he did. So
what do you think about the going to your team now, Mitch and Kenny? What route are you going?
I think Kenny's going to start. I know he's in concussion protocol, but I think if he's cleared, he's still the starter. He's going to start. I think it was a nice little redemption arc for Mitch Trubisky to have that play at the end of the fourth quarter. And I think it goes to show how, we've seen this in college football with Notre Dame in the last few years, how when you're the starter and you get benched, you're still one play away from playing. So it's important for the coach and for your team to keep you active and stimulated and ready to play. And so I was happy to see that he got that moment and he was ready to play, and he had some great passes to Chase Claypool to ice the game at the end. And it was nice. But Kenny Pickett, I think still starts. He scored the Steelers' first quarter touchdown, I think, of the season, and also their first touchdown pass of the season in week 5. So
that doesn't say a lot for the team. Yeah. So let me put it this way. I love throwing the hypotheticals out there, even though I hate when people do it to me. They're at Miami. It's a Sunday night game, I believe, this week. Say Kenny isn't out of protocol and Mitch starts and he plays well and they win. And then Kenny clears protocol for the next week at Philadelphia. Are you still saying we go back to Kenny, or do you leave Mitch in if he plays well and they win?
I think you still go back to Kenny, but if Mitch throws 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, then I'll change my mind. But we'll
he plays 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, maybe an interception, but well enough to win. That's not enough to say keep Kenny out, huh?
I think you still start Kenny against the Eagles, but I don't know, Mike. I'm not. Mike Tomlin knows best. He's the one who's done it for, 20 years. So we'll see what he does.
I'm still, I've been horrible at picking games. Horrible. I pick the Packers over the Jets. Keep thinking the Packers are going to get well, and the Jets.
I think a lot of people pick the Packers over the Jets. I wouldn't blame yourself. For that
yes, I agree with that. I mean, I certainly picked Tampa Bay over the Steelers. I did pick the Eagles. There was another one. the 49ers, I mean, I didn't see that one coming. I mean, I guess I still can't tell how good Atlanta is, but to beat them by 2 touchdowns, I thought San Francisco, and I had said I think would start rolling just a little bit, but that's certainly not the case with that performance. And you sit there and you look at that division. They're 3-3. The Rams are 3-3. Seattle is 3-3, and Arizona's 2-4. So it's been tougher and tougher to pick games this year. We talk about teams in college. More teams, I think, are better and closing the gap. And I think in the NFL, we're using that, what people consider the F word a little bit when you say, is there parity in the league now?
Mike, I don't know if it's parity or if there's just a lot of like medium good teams. Like there's some teams that are just not blowing me away, but I think will make the playoffs versus teams where I'm like, yeah, these 4 teams will definitely be in it, and we can predict to see them in January playing one another. Like, I still don't know what to think about the Chargers. I don't know if you watched that game with Russell Wilson, and now he's getting an MRI on his hamstring, I believe, and he might have a serious injury there. But that's a team that I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if they made a deep playoff run if they make it, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they peter out the rest of the season because they've just played kind of weird all year.
Yeah, we saw the arrow up on the Chargers, and I think the expectation was a little more. Now, they're 4-2, and Kansas City's 4-2, but I'm with you. The smell test, how they look, it's been a little surprising to me. All right, to finish this one up, so Smetty and I again, Jess, I went on our first road trip. It was at Notre Dame, and they lost. So we're willing to come to your school if you want to take the chance of that team playing poorly the next day. The one thing I have to ask now, Jess, she did bring me some baked goods, and let me tell you what, they were good. They were little. What officially were they called?
They were apple cider donuts, but I made them in a mini muffin tin because I didn't have a donut tin.
They were so good, and I mean, she brought a big thing of Tupperware with a lot of them in there, and I could have just housed them like popcorn. I started doing that, and finally I was like, I can't do this anymore. So the next day you went out, we saw each other at the pregame show that we went on. Then I was going home to nap, and you were going out to tailgate because it was about noon, and we had 7.5 hours before the game when I need my rest. What did you do? And you said you were going to take those apple cider muffins out into the tailgating world.
I did. I brought them to a tailgate, and when I opened the container, Mike, there were like 10 left. And I was like, sorry, I think Mike Golic actually ate the rest of these. I made like 50 of them. But I did bring a contribution to the tailgate I went to. Yeah, like you said, I went to the bookstore, tailgated a little. I was reminded how much it absolutely sucks to wait in line for one of those porta potties behind Legends when you really have to pee. Oh my God, that was a disaster. I hated it. But yeah, it was a really beautiful day and a wonderful day of tailgating. And I almost wish I could have been frozen in time and not gone into the stadium, because as soon as I did, that's when everything happened that was bad in the world. But Mike, I'm wondering if we can maybe use our bad luck powers for good this weekend or another time this season. I know, Notre Dame fans hate Michigan. Michigan's playing Michigan State. Maybe we could sneak into Ann Arbor or East Lansing, wherever that game is, and do a live show there. And
good call.
I don't know. I mean, we got to do something about this. We got to turn this thing around. Yeah,
we do. And if it's using our powers, and by God, we are going to do it. That's what we do. One real quick. So as I said, noon, we left each other. Did you stay out and active that entire time and then went right into the game?
Yes, I was exhausted when I got home Saturday night.
God.
Mike, I don't think I'm equipped for that kind of day anymore. And it makes me nervous for the Clemson game because I have the same plans in mind. But yeah, it was exhausting. And I used to do that, as a student all the time. We'd spend the entire day outside tailgating or whatever. And now I'm just like, I was so tired afterwards. I almost fell asleep in my seat at the game. I mean, maybe that was just because the offense stopped.
Yeah, that's true. But... Exactly. But yeah, as a college student, listen, we're all conditioned and trained to go multiple nights in a row of partying. So, but it's amazing how quickly you leave college and how quickly that leaves you. I, on the other hand, went home. And we probably left for the stadium at about 6:00. So
oh my God, that's amazing.
I watched the noon game that was on. It was Michigan, Penn State, and others.
Yeah.
And then the 3:30 game was Alabama, Tennessee, and Oklahoma State, TCU. I watched that up till 6 o'clock. And then we went to the stadium and watched the end of it there. It was awesome. I wasn't tired at all.
Well, you also have the benefit of having a nap nearby. So maybe for the Clemson game when I'm staying at your house, I'll be taking an afternoon nap.
There
as
you
well.
go. A little afternoon siesta before the show. Well, that would be good. So again, anybody that wants us to work our magic for you, you just have to let us know.